Hey, welcome back for our final evening of Love Elevated Summer School. If you've been with me for all three sessions, and I want to thank you for taking the time out to invest that time into your relationship education. I hope you've already begun noticing that we haven't spent this week talking about finding the right person. We've spent this week talking about becoming a better evaluator because I believe better decisions begin with better evaluation. And if this is your first night, then welcome. Each lesson was designed to build upon the lesson before it, but they also stand alone well. So I encourage you to go back and watch lesson two. And then you can shoot me a DM. You have some tech issues with lesson one, and I can send you the link for that. But if you are the channel, I am Arnitris L. Strong. I am an executive dating strategist and relationship educator, and I support single women who have created success in every area of their lives, and now they're ready to create success in their love stories. So we've spent this week, like I said before, talking about becoming a better evaluator because I believe that better decisions begin with better evaluation. So, on our first night, we learned the difference between facts and stories. We discovered that what happened and what we concluded are not always the same thing. And then on yesterday, we talked about something that was even more subtle. We talked about how easy it is to become emotionally invested in a future before the present has earned it. And we learned that potential and promise are not the same thing. And so tonight, I want to bring everything together because information alone doesn't change relationships, application does. So you can attend every class, you can read every book, you can listen to every podcast, and still find yourself repeating the same patterns if you never change the questions that you're asking. And so tonight, the three questions our relationships must answer. We have our learning objectives here. You're going to recognize when you've been explaining away consistent patterns instead of evaluating them. You're going to identify the decision you've been avoiding and understand what's keeping you from making it. And then you're going to evaluate a relationship based on its present reality rather than its future potential. All right, so let's get into it. One of the things that I've learned over the years is that our lives are mostly shaped by the questions that we repeatedly ask ourselves. Some people ask, does he like me? Others ask, when is he going to commit? Others ask, is this relationship meant to be? And those aren't necessarily bad questions. I just don't think they're the most helpful ones. And so tonight, I want to give you three different questions. And these are questions I wish someone had taught me years ago. They're questions that have become part of the way I evaluate every relationship. Questions that don't require you to become suspicious, but they are questions that also require you to become cynical. Questions that invite you to become honest. And although we're talking about romantic relationships, we've been talking about romantic relationships, these same principles apply to every single relationship that we have. Our friends, our family, co-workers. So these questions are going I am extending an invitation to you to become honest in your relationships because honesty has a way of setting us free, right? They say that the truth sets us free. But honesty has a way of setting us free before the circumstances change. All right? So let's get into it. If you are joining me live, please let me know in the chat. I'm going to stop for just a moment just to make sure that everything is running the way that it should. And we'll get into it. Make sure that you grab your journal. I got mine printed and and bound. But make sure that you grab your journal um, at bit.ly/love elevated summer school. Make sure that you have your journal. It's going to be very helpful for you. All right, give me just a moment to make sure that everything is working the way that it should. At bit.ly. Yeah, everything is working. All right, let's get into it. So, we went over our learning objectives, and I want to make sure that if you can do those three things, then you're going to leave Love Elevated Summer School with something that's more valuable than information. You're going to leave with a process. And process is that's something that's going to always be with you, right? It's going to travel with you. They work whether you're on a first date, whether you've been dating for 6 months, or whether you're evaluating any important relationship in your life. Now, let's begin. So, we are going to go over three questions, right? And I'm going to uncover them one at a time. All right, you ready for question one? Question one. What have I been repeatedly shown that I continue to explain away? And I don't want you to answer that immediately. I want you to sit with it. Because once you have figured out the answer to this question, you would have developed a competency in recognizing patterns instead of isolated events. Because sometimes we can get confused, um, mind boggled at looking at isolated events instead of looking at the pattern over time. And this question isn't about the other person. You see, what have I been repeatedly shown? This question is about us because one of the tenets of Love Elevated with Arnitras is that we focus on the person that we can control. All right. So this question is not, neither of these questions will be about the other person. They're all going to be about us. So one of the easiest things that we often do in relationships is to explain away information that we don't like. He was probably just busy. Maybe I misunderstood. I'm sure he didn't mean it that way. Everybody has bad days. Now, I want you to hear me carefully because sometimes those explanations are absolutely true. People do get busy, people do have bad days, people do make mistakes. And so that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about repeated patterns because isolated moments deserve grace. Repeated patterns deserve evaluation. You might want to write that down in your notes for tonight's session. Isolated moments deserve grace. Repeated patterns deserve evaluation. And there's a difference. Sometimes we can become so committed to preserving the relationship that we get exceptionally creative at explaining behavior that should simply be observed. And every explanation moves us one step further away from reality. And that's not because we're unintelligent. That's not because we're desperate. It's because hope can become very persuasive when it's attached to someone we care about. Remember, we talked about that last night. How sometimes we're making our decisions from a place of hope instead of what is actually in front of us. I want to challenge you with something. When you repeatedly find yourself explaining the same behavior, I want you to pause, not to judge, not to accuse, just ask, what information have I already been given? That's one of the things that we went over last night. Because healthy relationships don't require us to constantly renegotiate with reality. So if you have your journal, I want you to open it and I want you to complete one sentence. What have I been repeatedly shown that I continue to explain away. Don't write what someone promised. It's not about what you hope. I want you to write what you consistently observed. And take your time. I'm going to give you a few minutes, or maybe about a minute, to answer that question. All right? Now I want you to read what you wrote and quietly ask yourself, if someone I loved brought this exact situation to me, what would I encourage them to do? That is a question that I pose many times when people ask my advice about a situation. What would you tell your daughter if she were in this situation? What would you tell your friend, your aunt, your cousin, some other woman that you care about? What would you encourage them to do? Because sometimes, even though we are being so compassionate toward other people and persuasive with ourselves, and that's why this first question matters. It invites us to stop arguing with the evidence, because evidence doesn't become less true because we wish it were different. The evidence is the evidence. All right? Hold on just a second. We're having a little bit of tech difficulties here. We're going to get ready to go to our second question. All right. And that question is, what decisions am I avoiding because I don't like what the evidence is? And when you answer that question, the competency that you're going to be developing is you'll be able to make decisions from evidence instead of emotional avoidance. And so remember that we talked about yesterday about how hope has a way of having us skipping down the road toward this future that we have created in our minds that has not come true. We are attaching our hope to that future instead of staying rooted in the present. And this is what happens here. You start to avoid making a decision because you have all of the evidence that you need right in front of you to make a decision. All right? It's not that you don't have the evidence, you have it, it is right there in front of you. But you're avoiding making that decision because your emotions are attached to that future. And we want to be able to create a space so that your decisions are rooted in what is going on today, not what may happen, not what you would like to happen, not what could happen. Making your decisions based solely on the evidence that is in front of you. And so I want you to take some time and answer the question, what evidence am I avoiding? What evidence? What decisions am I avoiding because I don't like what the evidence is showing me? I'm going to give you about a minute to answer that, and then we're going to go on to question number 2. I'm sorry, we're going to go on to question number 3. All right, give you about 30 more seconds. All right. Now here's the big one. Question number 3. Nothing changes when I choose this relationship. And when you're able to answer that question, the competency that you're going to be developing is the ability to evaluate the relationship as it exists today, rather than how you hope it would be. If you notice that each of these questions are interconnected, and that question is not designed to rush you. That's the question that you want to take your time with. It's a question that is designed to bring you back to the present, because healthy decisions can only be made from the reality that we're actually living, not the reality we're hoping to create. And one of the things that I hope you've discovered this week is that relationship education isn't about becoming suspicious. It's not about looking for reasons to leave. It's not about assuming the worst in people. It's not even about becoming a woman. It is about becoming a woman who knows how to evaluate well. Because when you know how to evaluate, you don't have to become fearful. And here's the other thing about that. If we stop long enough in the getting to know someone phase to evaluate what is in front of us, then we protect our hearts, because we're not becoming overly emotionally invested in a situation that is not ideal. So when you know how to evaluate, you don't have to be fearful, but you become thoughtful, you become intentional, you become patient enough to let the truth reveal itself. And that's a different way of moving through relationships. I like for us to end where every meaningful educational experience should end, and that's with reflection. Because I want you to complete these statements. Because of these last 3 days, I now understand. One belief I'm choosing to leave behind is, and one relationship skill I want to continue developing is, one decision I'll make differently moving forward is. Take your time. There are no perfect answers. I'm going to give you a few minutes to mull over those questions. If you want to share your answers to those questions, either of those questions, in the chat, then please do. And if you don't want to share them, then that's fine too. So there are no perfect answers, as I said before, there are only honest answers. And those can be private for yourself. But as you look over what you've written this week, I hope that you notice something. On the first night, we learned how to separate facts from stories. On the second night, we learned to separate present reality from imagined future. And tonight, we learned how to make decisions that honor what we've consistently observed. So you see what we've been building? Not better dating techniques, better judgment. Because circumstances are going to change. People will change, technology is going to change, dating trends will change, but your ability to evaluate people with wisdom and patience and honesty will serve you for the rest of your life. And that's the kind of education I hope to provide. Now, before we leave, I want to look back at today's learning objectives. Before we leave, can I honestly say that now I recognize when I'm explaining away consistent patterns? I identify the decision I've been avoiding. I know how to evaluate a relationship based on today's reality rather than tomorrow's possibility. And if you are able to answer all of those in the affirmative, then I've done my job. But the good thing is that you will have these lessons to go back to. If you've missed something, you'll be able to go back to them. You'll have your journal, you'll be able to flip back through and gain some more insight. So now you have a process. You have a good process that is going to serve you better than quick answers. See, I don't give dating and relationship advice. I give processes and frameworks. Now, I want to share one final thought with you. Love Elevated Summer School was designed to introduce principles. It was designed to help you think differently, to give you a framework for evaluating relationships. But education becomes most valuable when it's applied. Knowing these principles is one thing. Learning how to apply them to your own dating experiences, your own patterns, and your own decisions is something entirely different. And that's why I created Before You Choose. Now, Before You Choose isn't a repeat of Love Elevated Summer School, it's the next step. It's where we take these principles and apply them to your life, your real life. We examine your relationship patterns. We'll identify the places where emotion may be overriding evaluation. We'll explore your divine relationship design and how it influences the way you naturally give, receive, and interpret love. And most importantly, you'll leave with a practical decision making framework you can carry into every future relationship. And if during these 3 evenings you find yourself thinking, I don't just need more information, I need help applying this to my own life, I'd like to invite you to join us. It would be an honor to continue learning with you. I want to thank you for spending these 3 evenings with me. Thank you for your willingness to learn and think differently. I want to thank you for your honesty. And I thank you for trusting me to be part of your relationship education. I want to leave you with one final thought, and that is that healthy relationships aren't built by asking perfect questions. They're built by having the courage to answer the honest ones. So may you trust what you see, respect what it means, and move intentionally toward the love you deserve and desire. Congratulations on completing Love Elevated Summer School. Good night. Class is dismissed.